Catastrophic damage and record-breaking conditions around the globe. The wild weather ran the gamut from scorching temperatures to multiple thousand-year floods. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the United States alone saw $15 billion worth in weather disasters over this last year. And with the deadly bomb cyclone that has swept across the country this past week, that number will only go up. NBC's Dylan Dreyer has more on this year in climate.
2022, a violent year of climate and weather extremes. From heat waves and drought to catastrophic flooding and hurricanes, the impacts reverberating around the globe. So far this year, $15 billion weather disasters hit the U.S., according to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The final count yet to be tallied. The first billion-dollar disaster came in the spring when warmer temperatures fueled 3 deadly tornado outbreaks in as many weeks, spawning more than 200 reported tornadoes across more than a dozen states.
It's very devastating when you like it's all your hard work is just going up in the air.
In the West, sections of Yellowstone National Park were devastated by destructive flash floods. Roads were washed away, and the park closed to the public for the first time in 3 decades. Climate change causing the atmosphere to be warmer and wetter, making conditions ripe for these types of events.
It was very surprising how quickly it came.
This summer was a story of extremes. Europe had its most intense heat wave in recorded history. London set a historic all-time high of 104 degrees. Back in the U.S., 6 1,000-year floods occurred in the span of 5 weeks in July and August. Places like St. Louis, Dallas, and eastern Kentucky deluged with 8 to 15 inches of rain in just 24 hours. Death Valley received its entire year's worth of rain in just 3 hours. The footprint of climate change leaving its mark across nearly the entire U.S. Parts of the West baked in the most severe heat ever recorded in the month of September.
I've never dealt with something this hot before.
Nearly 300 weather stations hitting their hottest temperatures in places like Salt Lake City, Reno, and Sacramento. Meanwhile, already extreme drought conditions in the region worsened. Lake Mead's water level plunged to its lowest yet. The Bureau of Reclamation declaring a Tier 2 water shortage for the first time ever, hoping to avert a water crisis. After a slow start to the hurricane season, Category 4 Ian roared ashore southwest Florida with winds topping 150 miles per hour, time for the 5th strongest hurricane ever to strike the United States. Neighborhoods in Fort Myers and Naples left in ruin. Warmer waters are acting as jet fuel, causing the storms to rapidly intensify. Just as the season was coming to a close, Category 1 Nicole became the first November hurricane to make landfall in nearly 40 years. Scientists attribute this to warmer sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean, this year running up to 3.5 degrees above average.
Nicole is the nail in the coffin for Daytona Beach Shores. Ian came in and did all this damage, and now Nicole is just putting us away.
In upstate New York, winter arrived early when a massive November snowstorm rewrote the history books, burying neighborhoods and even the Buffalo Bills stadium under 80 inches of snow.
There's nothing in the store. You can't get a loaf of bread or anything.
With eerie similarity to last year, a series of deadly cool season tornadoes ripped through the South. More than 100 reported over 2 weeks across 7 states between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
This is my house right here, y'all. My house is gone.
The December twisters, part of a massive week-long cross-country storm that dropped 4 feet of snow in the west, brought blinding blizzard conditions to the upper Midwest and dozens of tornadoes to the south. Then, a historic and deadly bomb cyclone crippled half the country over the holidays, bringing with it plummeting temperatures, blizzard conditions lasting nearly 40 hours, and 50 inches of snow. The storm pushed the city of Buffalo into the record books. It's the city's snowiest start to the season ever, at least 100 inches and counting. Dylan Dreyer, NBC News.
Just extraordinary there. Our thanks to Dylan for that look back. That does it for me after this very busy 2 hours. I'll see you again tomorrow at noon Eastern.
And you still have people to this day that's dead set towards saying, oh, no, the earth isn't changing. Global warming isn't real. because we recently had this cold snap, and for some reason their minds is only a gigabyte long instead of a trigabyte long, and they can't remember the span of everything that has happened all throughout the year. So they base everything off face value of what's happening right now at this present time. They don't remember the floods. They don't remember the heat. They don't remember the Mississippi River. They don't remember all the other erratical weather patterns that's been happening now all over the planet. They only remember what has recently happened. That way they can either add to it or take from it. And we've been dealing with this idiocy now for, I guess, about 25 or 30 years. And it's the very thing that has got not only us in trouble environmentally, but it's also what's got us in trouble financially, politically, spiritually. They claim that the psychiatric problems in America right now are higher than what they've ever been, pertaining to people just basically are dysfunctional. They can't even function like they ought to. Some of them can't even read and write. Of course, I had problems in reading myself whenever I was growing up towards being illiterate. And it's only because of since recently of smartphone technology that I've been able to get my messages across to the general public the way that I have. But even at that, a lot of those people are just dysfunctional towards not even being able to rely upon those type of tools to help them out. A lot of them. And I don't know if they're just too lazy. I don't know if they've just given up on life. I don't know if they just don't care anymore, because that's the case with a lot of them. It's really, really sad. And, you know, maybe you can kind of halfway understand that with a older person, you know, that's already got basically one foot in the grave and another one on a banana peeling. But for these younger people to not be driving themselves every day towards new adventurous activities and creative stuff to be able to help humanity in solving our problems, for them to just lay down and die almost is a very, very dangerous state for any country, much less the planet, to be in. And that's basically what we've been dealing with here lately, especially for the past 15 or 20 years, that basically started about 30 years ago with a group of people that no longer has the insight or the drive, the momentum of picking up and going and pulling their own load. They rather other people pull the load for them. In other words, they become exceptionally lazy, especially for the past 3 years since COVID has hit. And the government here in America has produced all these freebies and all these entitlements and all these checks coming out and all this other stuff. Well, naturally, if you're going to take let's just say a stray pet, you're going to have an old stray come by your house. You live out in the middle of nowhere like I live, and you start feeding it. Well, it don't matter if that stray is a good stray, a bad stray. It don't matter if it's let's say if it's a mouser towards killing mice. Well, he won't have to kill mice, because now you got somebody, an idiot, that's feeding it to this cat for free. Or if it's a dog, well, the dog don't have to worry about being good to its master, towards letting the master know whenever there's something coming onto the property, because you know what? The master feeds the dog for free. Well, people are the same way. Whenever you give them all these freebies and they don't have to pull their own weight, they're going to lay down and expect that again and again and again. And it's called being spoiled. And this country over here is the world's worst whenever it comes to parents spoiling their children, in which I don't think no parent, if they're a good parent at all, wants their children to suffer and go through some of the horrors that they had to go through just to be able to get what they got. But at the same time, you got to realize that a lot of that stuff pertaining to those hiccups and pertaining to those aches and pains and those bumps and those bruises and sometimes those scars is what develops us and makes us who we are today. And if those children don't go through those same bumps in the road, don't go through those same hiccups, don't go through those same challenges, they're not going to be developed like we are, or like some of us are. I can't say that all of us are, but like some of us are, towards still wanting to strive and push ourselves. I find various things to be very, very motivating to me in watching people. One of them are the disability people and our veterans, pertaining to those that has lost limbs and arms, and basically society, the ordinary society's done already given up on them because they don't want to fool with them. Retarded people, people born with some sort of mental illness. I really envy those people, because I myself am borderline towards being a cripple, and probably in ways I really am because of my disabilities, especially me at my age and my weight and etc. But I really envy older people that decides that they're going to go and get their GED, in which I've tried to do that several different times, and I just haven't found time yet to do it, and I will. One day I will. But I really find it appealing, motivating, towards seeing somebody in their 60s, 70s, and maybe even their 80s get their GED, go to college, and get some sort of a degree. To me, that's where all society should be, towards wanting to drive themselves towards a better tomorrow, towards learning, towards growing, towards expanding, towards evolving, towards maturing. But that's not what we have here in America right now. We have a sickness, and the sickness is everybody is not only not everybody is physically sick, but a lot of people are emotionally sick, a lot of people are spiritually sick, a lot of people are financially sick, a lot of people are just out of touch with reality, to the point that they don't have no balance at all in their lives. And of course, whenever you see the extreme weather patterns that's causing these conditions again and again and again to intensify, and you have people like those short-winded or short memory type people, the people that's very narrow-minded and they can't see the trees for the forest, whenever you have those people that's dominating society like it has in the past 30 plus years, you're going to have a society that's been driven off into the wrong direction. And like I said, because we got that cold snap, I guarantee you there has been thousands, if not millions of people that is reflected towards themselves or somebody in saying, well, see there, global warming, this don't seem like global warming to me. We got down to 0 degrees. Yeah, but today it's almost 60. Yesterday it was 55. And the day before that it was 45. We're steadily going up and down, up and down, up and down like a yo-yo. In the wintertime, pertaining to the heat exceeding or beating the code. And of course, whenever you have the heat during the summertime, and the heat is just relentless. I mean, as soon as springtime gets here, we really don't have a spring no more. It just automatically jumps from like average of 55 to 60 to like 87 to 92 overnight. And it's just, this year was just endless. Day after day after day after day was not only hot, but it was dry too as well. We didn't get the rains like we should have had. Now, at first, it was a wet spring. Very wet and very cold spring. And the farmers had a tough time in being able to get their crops in this year because of that. So they missed out on a lot of the good spring rains that they ordinarily would get if they would have had their crops in the ground. But they didn't have their crops in the ground because they had to wait for the fields to dry up enough to be able to get their tractors in there. Well, then as soon as they got their tractors in there and they started planting, guess what happened? Their hot water got turned off to a cold drip. And that's whenever it got super, super hot and super, super dry. And that's what caused a great deal of the damages this year alone in the agriculture communities. Now, the assessment that woman just got through giving you, that's strictly probably just an insurance assessment pertaining to the damages. You've got so many more people out there that don't have insurance. They can't afford insurance. And it doesn't matter in what state or where at. There's probably more of them in Kentucky and Tennessee and Mississippi and Alabama pertaining to some of the poor states in America. But then again, there's other people like in Florida, whenever that hurricane hit, I guarantee you they didn't have not one drop of insurance. So I don't even know if those people are in the equation whenever they say it's a $1 billion storm or it's a $1 billion event. In addition to what kind of damage that has happened this year with our forestry, in addition to what kind of damage has happened towards extra resources that had to be used up to deviate around the Mississippi River, not being functionable, to the degree that I know that the markets was docking farmers at least $1 a bushel because of the extra conditions that they was going to have to divert around towards no longer being able to work getting the grain one way by the Mississippi River. They had to divert it over to truck towards going and trucking it out that way. So it costed the farmers that way. It's costed the farmers as far as not getting yields. It's costed people to the extent that they either couldn't work like they should have had outside because of the heat, or in some cases they couldn't even work at all. There was probably lots of crews that works outside that probably had to stagnate their hours towards coming into work basically about sun up, along about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, working till about maybe 11, going home, taking a rest, coming back to work along about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, and then working from 3 o'clock till to nighttime. We've had to do that many, many times towards trying to deviate around the heat. If not, we wasn't going to get nothing done, because you spend more time wiping the sweat out of your eyes and drinking water and trying to gas for breath, because the conditions are so raw. Now, if you've never worked outside in labor type issues, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, other than maybe some people raking their yard occasionally, or working in their garden and saying, man, oh man, wasn't it hot? Or going from their house, going down to their local Walmart, or doing something else. Man, oh man, wasn't it hot? Well, it is hot. But you really don't understand hot until you got to work out in it day after day after day after day after day. It's relentless, and it will wear you down. I don't care how strong mentally or physically you are. Heat will wear you down. It will whip you just like a whip pup. I don't care if you're Superman. If you stay in it long enough and be exposed to it long enough and etc., it will really slow your productiveness down. And to some degree, I guess cold weather does too. I mean, you take this cold weather, all this snow and ice, contractors, electricians, plumbers, welders, people working outside, basically shuts them down. They can't work in these extreme conditions like this. So I don't know that her equation was really and truly an accurate equation. Whenever you get to looking at really and truly all the other stuff, regardless whether it's the game, regardless whether it's the agriculture, regardless whether it's the forestry, regardless whether it's the uninsured. I mean, if you look at all of it, it is a blow again and again and again to the American economy and to now worldwide economies all over the world. And it's only drastically getting worse. And I still say the instability in our weather patterns is not created from the atmosphere above that's affecting us down here. It's rather the other way around. It's what's going on underneath our feet towards the warming of the waters, etc. That it's the planet that is affecting the atmosphere, not the atmosphere that's affecting the planet. Scientists has had it all wrong in thinking, well, it was cow farts. Well, it was aerosol cans. Well, it was R134 Freon that goes in the cars towards keeping their air conditioners cool. We're going to divert from R12 to R134. Well, it was this. Well, it was that. Well, we're going to take everybody's emissions and we're going to cut them down, and we're going to put Cadillac converters in them where they can run a whole lot more pure and a whole lot more cleaner. Don't get me wrong. All of those things is good. They really are. All of them things is good. But whenever you have massive streamers constantly flying, give or take around 5,000 a day just in the continental United States alone towards airlines that's constantly putting out all kinds of poisonous gases up there because people can afford it. They can afford to travel. They got big money. Well, you're constantly adding to the problems above there with all the stuff, because I don't think they make an airplane yet that can run off a battery or hybrid or electricity. It requires a certain amount of horsepower to get the plane off the ground, or a spaceship off the ground, or an 18-wheeler to go down the road, or a combine, or a cotton picker, or a cattle farmer traveling, taking his cattle to the market, a backhoe, a bulldozer. All these things require a great deal of horsepower, and until we modify those horsepower ranges, we're always going to be a bit dependent upon crude oil, no matter what we do or how hard that we try not to be. But we're not trying hard enough. And the fact of the matter is, we're about 30 years behind where we should be right now, simply because of those very same people that I was talking to you about, the climate deniers, the ones that's narrow-minded, that can't see the trees for the forest because they have little megabyte memories instead of terabyte memories. They have megabyte memories, and they can't remember of the events that recently happened just within the past 6 months from now, much less 6 years ago. And that has gotten us in trouble in every level imaginable.
In place, and criticism is mounting for how the storm was handled.
Mayor's not going to be happy to hear about it, but storm after storm after storm after storm, the city, unfortunately, is the last one to be opened, and that shouldn't be the case. It's embarrassing, to tell you the truth.
Joining me now is NBC's Marissa Parra in Buffalo. Marissa, you've been following this for several days now. The Erie County...
Once more, the Grand Lakes up there, the big lakes in the continental United States, the Great Lakes, the water has warmed up between 3 and 5 degrees warmer than what it should. So because the lake water is warmer, it takes it longer to freeze. If those lakes right now had a solid sheet of ice on them, guess what? You would just knock the snow machine in the head. But because the lakes was warmer, and because this front recently come down through here with all that blast of cold and all that blast of energy, it basically took all that moisture off that heated water, all that steam and all that moisture, and it basically created a snow machine. And that's the reason why we're seeing these areas now not just getting 12 inches, 18 inches, 2 foot of snow, or even 3 foot of snow. No. You better double that, and in some cases, maybe even triple that, depending upon if the conditions are just right. Oh, yeah. And these towns or these cities, these areas that thought that they had the proper equipment, that thought that they had the proper knowledge to be able to handle stuff like this, it's overwhelming to them. Just like it being overwhelming to the people here in the state of Tennessee pertaining to TVA, the authorities had to basically go through blackouts. Why? Several different reasons. Population growth, old equipment, okay? And they haven't designed their equipment to be able to handle a load like this towards all of a sudden it becoming 5 degrees below zero. Now, 45, 50, 60 years ago, here in the state of Tennessee, in the winter, those was norms. And people prepared for those norms. Today, it hit them unexpectedly. And because of it, they had to put out advisories, and they also had to put out an apology to the public as of yesterday, the day before yesterday. This is 4 days after Christmas, year 2022, and the Tennessee Valley authorities had to put out this statement towards apologizing to their customer base, because they don't just supply electricity to the people in Tennessee. They supply people electricity, parts of them in North Carolina, parts of them in West Virginia, parts of them in Virginia, some of them in Pennsylvania, some of them up in Kentucky, some of them up in probably Indiana, probably all the way down in Alabama, Mississippi. I mean, they're pretty widespread. It ain't just 7 million people pertaining to the population growth that's happened here in the state of Tennessee. It's the population growth that's happened within the past 30 plus years in regards towards bringing all these illegal people over here that's draining the resources. And once more, just like Texas, whenever they got hit with that massive cold front that went down through there and it basically killed about 1,000 people because of them either freezing to death or dying of carbon dioxide towards putting generators too close to their houses, they was not equipped for that type of shock. And that's exactly what it is. It's a fast freeze shock. And years ago, yeah, we got shocks. Matter of fact, I remember the Dan Ryan in 1965 or 66. About the time we moved down to Tennessee, they had a big shock up there that basically killed about 40 or 50 people on the Dan Ryan and just froze to death. Couldn't nobody get to them. Froze to death. Died. Well, even with areas such as in Chicago, because it was so quick and sudden, and because the elements was just right, it happened. And it's sad. It's sad to see your citizens, just like that man just got through saying a while ago, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace whenever our authority figures can no longer protect us and take care of us, regardless whether it be infiltrators coming through the internet toward trying to steal our identity, or it be somebody going to try to plot some sort of homegrown terrorist attack, either on an infrastructure or electrical grid system or any of the above, or we got a massive shooter that decides to kick out a window and kill ain't no telling how many people in Las Vegas, or you got people breaking into schools and doing what they're doing pertaining to the violence, all the gun violence, all the suicides, all the drug overdoses, all the drug use, all the other problems above. $30+ trillion in debt, all our jails being full, prisons being full, etc., etc., etc. This thing has turned upside down in comparison to the way that it used to be pertaining to safety and prosperity and peace and utopia. We have gone in the opposite direction in the past 30 some odd years, going in the opposite direction of peace and utopia. All the divorces, people can't get along. Now you got the LGBTQ community that's sticking its head out towards wanting to dominate society in that way. You got all these other problems, and I'm telling you right now, God has taken his hand off of a great deal of the population of the world. And basically what it leads to, you have bitten the hand that has fed you to the degree that now God's no longer protecting you, and now he's allowing for these elements for you to see just exactly what you have been a part of for the past 30, 40, 50 years. And it's really sad because it puts such of a burden upon to the young people, and it caused the people, the innocent people, it causes such destruction into their lives because of the adults, because of the baby boomers, because of those that was in charge of all these affairs. And they thought that they could get away with it towards kicking the can down the road. Well, we'll let some other administration deal with it. We'll let some other generation deal with it. We'll let some other people deal with it. Well, you can only do that for a certain length of time before, guess what? It catches up with you. You can only lie about certain things like climate deniers or election deniers or even windmill ministry missions deniers, and basically people that didn't want to support me back years and years ago because obviously they either thought that I was a nut, or they thought that I was hoax, or they thought that I was trying to hustle them or trying to do something towards being a celebrity hound or any of the above. They didn't take my message serious. And because of it, and because of what didn't happen in 1988, whenever Nine Tapes went to the White House, that is what has gotten us in the trouble that we're in right now. And I'll tell any of these elderly people around here that's older than me or right around my age that we, the people, have brought this up onto ourselves. And if we're not smart enough to identify where we went wrong and try to take the wrongs and turn them into rights, we're just going to continue to go backwards, deeper and deeper and deeper.
Just heard from there says he's having discussions with New York State about the county taking over the city's snow clearing operations in the future. Those roads finally reopening. What are you seeing? Right. Well, I will say this, with such a deadly event like this, there's always understandably going to be questions on how can we prevent this in the future and questions on what could have been done better. But I will say that in terms of where things stand right now, it really is night and day. When you look at the comparison between yesterday and today, the temperatures are warming up so much already that we're seeing the green of grass and the black of asphalt for the first time in what Buffalo has seen in roughly a week. This is, the warmest temperatures approaching 50 degrees this weekend. And so there's rapid snow melt happening. But even so, you just mentioned the travel advisory in place now. So that driving ban is no longer in place. The airports are back open. People are able to drive on the highways for the first time. And again, almost a week. But with 600 pieces of snow removal equipment still on the roads, the city's mayor is still asking for people to be cautious as they're driving.
I'm asking people to still be cautious. And if you don't need to drive, please don't. A travel advisory will be in place as the storm cleanup continues, and lots of equipment will be on city streets hauling and removing snow.
So you can imagine for people who were hunkered down in their homes for, again, what was almost a week, this is the time to now go get their supplies. We know there are a lot of people who were running low on food and low on those supplies. So this is now their time to go and do just that. But we mentioned all the snow removal equipment that's out there. We did just get updated numbers. So as of last night, 500 National Guard members have conducted nearly 850 welfare checks on residents who had long-term power outages. When we look at the death toll, we know the vast majority of those who died as a result of exposure. So that could be anything from not having access to shelter, so they were outside, or they were inside of their homes without heat. And we know that power outages were a big concern. Those have now dwindled into the double digits at last check. It was less than 62. That was according to last night, probably even less right now. So really a lot is turning for the better. However, one thing to keep in mind here, after everything Buffalo has been through, we have this rapid snow melt in addition to what we expect to be a rainy weekend. So there were flooding concerns. New York Governor Hochul deployed state resources, upwards of 800,000 sandbags, as well as generators and pumps, just in case they would see significant flooding. Thankfully, they're not expecting the same flooding concerns that they were initially, but they have those sandbags and resources just in case. Back to you. Okay, Marissa Parra for us in Buffalo. Marissa, thank you for that update. And we just heard relief could be on the way, as Marissa was pointing out there in Buffalo, as warmer weather is expected to spread across much of the eastern U.S. over the next 3 days. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, 5 separate storm systems are expected to wreak havoc after the region was battered by stormy weather.
Okay, we're not going to look at that because it's going to hit them kind of like a freight train again and again and again, in which some of those areas actually do need the water to go off into Lake Mead pertaining to the Colorado River. But they don't need to get it all in one night. These abnormal weather patterns, just like you just got through listening to that commentator talking about the governor and the mayor and all that other stuff with the snow moving equipment. In her eyes, she sees this as a good thing because it's warming up, right? Everybody says, right? That's a good thing, right? It's warming up. No, wrong. Because whenever it warms up, then it hesitates the freezing back to the Great Lakes. Okay? And now you take a chance on the same major event happening again. Because the cold did not come down and stay down. I know in one perspective, it does look like that it would be a better thing to be able to handle the snow problems and rescue services if it was to warm up. And that's true. But what you don't want it to do is warm up too much too fast. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing extreme weather patterns going from daylight to dark from hot to cold. And we have to ask ourselves the questions, what the heck is causing all these irregularities with our weather? Well, it talks about the sorrows, okay, in the Bible. But I believe that it's because we have went so far with the petroleum oil typhoons towards draining all the resources out of the ground that now the ground is basically warming up from the inside out. And we are now suffering the consequences on account of it. That's my prognosis. That's my analogy of it. I can't prove it. I don't have a machine to go down into the ground 3,000 miles to be able to make that final determination. But I do know this: whatever God has put in place for it to be stable, ecosystem, it's the humans that can knock that out of order to the degree that now everything becomes abnormal instead of normal. And these are the consequences on account of it. Just like it just got to talking about in the year 2022 for the catastrophes. And we still got 4 or 5 days yet to go. So God only knows what's going to happen within the next few days out west pertaining to the flooding. I mean, they had massive snows up there. In some of the higher ranging mountains out there in California. And, you know, if it warms up too quick, if you get a lot of rain, what happens? You got floods, you got mudslides, you got people dying because now canyons and rivers and streams is overflowing. So we're seeing this harshness hit us again and again and again. And we need to put aside all these doubters and all these people that's narrow-minded, and obviously they can't see what's happening or don't care to see what's happening, and start trying to figure out a game plan towards how we're going to work out of this. If not, I don't even know if society is going to be sustainable of living on the planet another 10 years from now the way that we're going. It'd be so harsh, and it was causing so many people's lives to be destroyed, either through floods or fires or hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes or volcanoes or diseases or wars or whatever, famines, people starving to death, whatever, fights, drugs, violence, guns, etc. I don't know. I'm questioning whether or not we've gone too far. Whether or not we have went to the point of no return. Good luck to all of us in the year 2022. I want to say thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your time. Good luck to each and every one of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our endeavors with where we go from here. Just want to say good luck to each and every one of us. And once more, God bless. Heaven help us all, and shalom.